Let's take a look at a few things Trump has said recently and evaluate whether or not he's a fascist or someone who actually makes good points.
But what I want to do and what I will do is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges too. Anybody graduates from a college, you go in there for 2 years or 4 years. If you graduate or you get a doctorate degree from a college, you should be able to stay in this country. And you know more stories than I do, but I know of stories where people graduated from a top college or from a college and they desperately wanted to stay here. They had a plan for a company, a concept, and they can't. They go back to India, they go back to China, they do the same basic company in those places, and they become multi-billionaires employing thousands and thousands of people, and it could have been done here. And a bigger example is you need a pool of people to work for your companies. You have great companies, and they have to be smart people. Not everybody can be less than smart. You need brilliant people. And we force the brilliant people, the people that...
Not everyone can be less than smart. What does that even mean?
Graduate from college, the people that are number one in their class from the best colleges, you have to be able to recruit these people and keep the people.
So on the surface, I understand this perspective, and I think this should apply in certain fields. I think if we're going to have a merit-based immigration system, which makes the most sense to me, we should allow someone to come here, get educated, and then let them stay if they're going to be productive, contributing members of society. I have no doubt that these stories of people trying to do that are true. Where I think Trump goes wrong, and actually a lot of right-wingers obviously also think he's wrong, is when he says if you graduate from any college, you should get a degree. That's a terrible idea. All you're doing is creating a economic incentive for universities to become degree mills, to just hand out basically green cards. You're paying for some, English major to then get a green card? That's a terrible idea, and we should not be feeding the university industrial complex any more than it's already been fed. What's interesting is this is at least some evidence that Trump is not blindly motivated by racism, because this is clearly... So I think it's an interesting point to observe.
Are you going to do a national abortion ban? Would you support that, yes or no?
So I don't need a national ban because it's up to the states. Right now, what I did is something that people have wanted to do from day one. 51 years it's been going on. And if you remember, over the years, you're too young, but over the years, all they wanted to do is they wanted to take it out of the federal government and move it into the states.
He goes on a bit, but the point is he doesn't support a ban.
So you wouldn't support a national ban?
No, I wouldn't support a national ban. No, I would not.
Okay, this is good stuff, in my opinion. I think a national abortion ban is a bad idea. Now, Trump obviously is known to lie and has not followed through with his promises in the past, but I think Trump is a populist who responds to what the majority of people want, more so than he is adhering to Christian nationalist principles, per se. I think he surrounds himself with questionable figures, Christian nationalists and very hardcore religious Zionists. But again, this is indication that he's not supporting something that a lot of pro-lifers and right-wingers want, and I think that's good. It's good that he is not supporting that.
What about nuclear, Mr. President? Yeah. So let me just give you a statistic on this. China's building 150 nuclear reactors, and they're only spending about $2,500 a kilowatt. In the U.S., we're not building any, and our cost to build them is about $10,000 a kilowatt. And China's about to build as much capacity as 20% of the total U.S. production in nuclear. We clearly have a problem here in nuclear.
We do, and nuclear is okay with me. And what we're doing is, if you look at Alabama, you look at a couple of states where they built these plants and they had cost overruns that nobody's ever seen anything like it, where they're costing $25 billion to build a plant. There were a couple of them built in the South. I won't mention the places, but you know the places. And they came out at numbers that I think the most expensive things ever built in our country. And the inspectors would go in, they say, those walls aren't thick enough, knock them down and build another wall. And, the environmental people were brutal. In France and in other places where they do have a lot of nuclear, they build small plants all the same. And if they need double the amount, they'll build two of them, as opposed to the nonsense that we've done where we build these massive plants and they never get built and they have cost overruns of 300, 400, 500%. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. No, I'm okay with nuclear, but you have to do it in a way that makes sense. And they have nuclear applications today that can be built and can be built reasonably inexpensively. But nuclear certainly is very strong power.
So that is an example of Trump clearly having talked to someone who is an expert on these issues and them explaining to him what they do in France, because that's a very hyper-specific point to make that requires obvious domain expertise. that France makes smaller reactors and scales the number rather than building these giant reactors that get bogged down in bureaucracy. So that's good. I say that's a general trend of when I listen to Trump and why I'm generally very sympathetic and why clearly he's not coming off like an absolute buffoon here. Because it's clear to me that he does listen to people around him who have expert knowledge. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to articulate that because he sure as hell doesn't know anything about nuclear other than what he hears from people. So when he says things like that make sense, it gives me confidence in, his ability of like, okay, well, if he was elected, it would not be the end of the world because I actually do think he knows what he's doing, at least in principle, some of the time. And I think nuclear is the ultimate enlightened centrist policy solution. And I just saw legislation was passed that was going to increase the likelihood of nuclear power plants being built because it slashes regulation. So good stuff all around.
This week he announced that he will withhold shipping weapons to Israel as they fight to eradicate Hamas terrorists in Gaza. No, it was shocking to hear it. Even while there are still American hostages being held by Hamas. And they're saying, oh, October 7th never happened. They say that. And Biden has fallen for it. Crooked Joe's action is one of the worst betrayals of an American ally in the history of our country. I support Israel's right to win its war on terror. Is that okay? I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad politically. I don't care.
Okay, that last point. This is why I trust Donald Trump because, and I'm putting trust in quotation marks, where what he just said there is so obviously him blurting out what's on his mind. Because he just said, I don't know if that's good politics. And he means that because his base, which is made up of people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, are very anti-Israel. So him saying, I think Israel should be supported, I don't know if that's good politics. Like, he clearly means that because his base doesn't support Israel to the degree that he does, or at least appears to do here. So I just thought that was funny, and I don't like the blind support of Israel. I think Biden should be withholding arms from Netanyahu when Biden establishes a clear line. Do not invade Rafah. Do not invade the southern city of Rafah. Do not invade Rafah or we'll withhold military weapons. And if they are withheld, then Trump criticizes that. So in my mind, not good as far as Trump is concerned.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
That's obviously no good. I think it's clear that Trump probably knew, if not explicitly, knew implicitly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing and all the nefarious shit. And I genuinely believe that Trump was not involved himself in the worst aspects of it, but he probably knew about it. And if he did, and if he witnessed anything that is horrible, what happened on that island, then the best outcome would be Trump being held to account for that, because that's fucked up. And I see no reason why he wouldn't declassify it unless him or people that have power and influence over him are part of that, and he would get attacked for that. So not good, very lame, very unenlightened centrist of him. Anyway, the point of going through those is I've seen a couple things from Trump recently, and it's clear that he is capable of making good points. Now, when you compare it with all the nonsense and all that shit, that muddles the waters. But I just wanted to show people why it's so unbelievably hard to take anyone seriously when they paint Trump as literally insane, like frothing at the mouth insane. You can take his worst moments and they're bad. But when he's talking about the nuclear reactors and kind of giving very specific nuanced details around that, and then mentioning like opening up immigration way more than it should be by attaching it to college degrees, he's clearly not motivated by pure racism and racial hate and all that. So we'll keep an eye on things, and hopefully come November 4th, 7th, whatever the election is, we all don't die. In the meantime, good luck and Godspeed.